There we go. And I'm going to pass it off to our Executive Director, Kathy Stevens, with the welcome. Kathy?
Hi, everyone. I feel like this is like the perfect back to school moment for this first workshop of the fall, and I'm feeling it because of the weather too. It just feels like good karma to have cool weather and be back to school. Welcome, everyone. We're always so appreciative of all the work you do and attending our workshops. Um, just as a reminder and a refresher, and just as you think about starting this year, McHale, what is McHale? So when people are asking you, what are you doing this afternoon? Just a reminder that McHale is the coordinating entity in the county for all adult ESOL services, classes, professional development programs. And our role really is to maintain and build a network, a complex network of classes and learning opportunities for our learners. And you all are part of McHale. We consider the coalition to include all instructors, all programs. It includes the learners, it includes supporters, it includes really everyone because we like to think we're the only game in town and we are. But just so you can always say, "Hey, I'm a McHale instructor and I work for whatever program you work for," that kind of thing, because it's all interconnected, and we feel very proud and very thankful for your work and your commitment to your students and your commitment to your own professional development through opportunities like this. So it's really important to us that as the coordinating entity, we want to make sure you know that you're involved and you are part of the coalition. So thank you for being here and doing that. And thank you again for all the work that you will be doing as we kind of gear up in the school year. And you've got great resources here, and Tiffany and the other staff and all of the professional development opportunities that we record and keep online, and then anything like this that you can attend. So I'm thankful to see you all today, and so glad to have you here. And thank you again for your work.
Thank you for all that HOC. How I can help you today?
Thank you so much. I'm just going to hit this mute button right here. Thank you so much, Kathy. And I echo Kathy and thanking you all for the work that you do and for being here. We're really excited at McHale to launch this year with this focus on assessment, because we know this is a core part of all of the work that we do, and how a core way that we can improve as instructors and program administrators and support our learners. This year, we're really excited to focus on a few key areas of our professional development. Of course, we're going to continue to support you with instructional strategies. We'll continue to explore learner-centered instruction and culturally responsive instruction. And then this year, a couple of our workshops are going to be based on the feedback that we received from learners through their focus groups and surveys for areas that they think are really important in the classroom. We want to make sure that we honor those voices and bring you workshops to support in those areas as well. Today's workshop is focused on how we can use formative assessment to monitor student understanding while they're actively learning, and how we can take that information from assessment to inform our future instruction. This is an interactive workshop today. We'll be utilizing the chat and polls and breakout rooms, so please be prepared to engage. We love seeing all these faces with cameras on, so if you're able to do that, it just creates an even better learning experience for us all. And today's session is being recorded, and you will have access to the presentation afterwards in a follow-up email. And I'm excited to announce a new feature of our McHale Professional Development. In addition to this workshop today, we're going to have a coaching follow-up call in a couple weeks. We'll give you more information at the end, so that you can take what you learned from today, apply what you learned, and get additional follow-up support on a coaching call in a few weeks. So we'll give you more information about that, but we're really excited to bring that to you. But with that, we'll get this show on the road. I am excited to introduce Ms. Ahu Moser, who may be a familiar face for many of you here as a long time a part of the McHale Coalition. Ahu is currently the Adult Education Program Specialist in the Division of Workforce Development and Adult Learning at the Maryland Department of Labor. That is a mouthful, Ahu. She regularly presents at local and international conferences to support adult education professionals in innovative instructional practices, serving multilingual learners, and most importantly, on supporting program staff for barrier removal in the lives of adult learners. AHU has taught ESL and EFL, as well as managed academic programming for 8 years as a Senior Director of Academic Programming before joining Maryland Labor in 2022. With that, I'm going to pass it to Ahu. Thank you for being here, Ahu.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I am just going to share my screen. And then, can everybody see my screen? And hopefully, perfect. That's great. I'm really happy to be here today. As a long-time Montgomery County resident, and I did work in a couple of programs in Montgomery County where I got to meet amazing colleagues, instructors, program administrators, and many more. So I'm really honored to be here today. And I do hope that this workshop, or let's say this session, is really something that you could really reflect on later about what the formative assessments are for ESL students. Tiffany did a wonderful job, and then I don't think I do have anything to add, and that's me. And then I have here a little bit of a disclaimer. So since my full-time job is at Maryland Department of Labor, and nothing that I say here reflects the Department of Labor's ideas or mission or vision. So we just put it right here a little bit for you. So we have this agenda, and then it might look really too much. Oh my God, what are we going to do in this 1 hour and 30 minutes workshop? We could maybe really talk about formative assessments hours and hours. We could even have a day-long workshop around this. But what I'm hoping today is that as a former instructor, ESL instructor for many years, and then I started, as soon as I graduated from college, I had lots of challenges. I had lots of setbacks when I was thinking about, oh, I was doing really great, but I wasn't really doing great. So I have been through lots of things. So I really want to share with you my experiences around those things too. What I would like to say is that I'm not going to go over this agenda in detail, but this is our agenda in a nutshell. And throughout today's workshop, in some of the slides, you are going to see a QR code. So why do we have the QR code? So for this session, I did prepare a Padlet. What I'm going to do is that as soon as this session ends, I am going to put a copy of the presentation there. I have already posted a lot of resources there for you to use. So they're all there. And then I also have the Padlet link as well at the end. But if you want to have my presentation later, maybe when you are thinking about how today's presentation went, just scan the QR code and then you will have everything there. So let's start. And then I have this number one thing. So as we are going into the formative assessments together today, maybe we could use some features of Zoom as formative assessment sections, let's say. My question for you is that, are tests and assessments the same things? If you do believe that they are the same things, please use the thumbs up feature of Zoom and thumbs up. Yes, Ahu, what are you asking about? They are same, or no, they are different. Maybe let's take a moment and see, are they the same or they are not the same? If you don't want to do thumbs up or thumbs down, you can always unmute yourself and say, you know what, they are the same or not. I really cannot see anything, but Tiffany, can you see? Do we? I see from Julie. Julie, no thumbs down. No. Do we have?
They're rolling in the
see
chat,
Lisa?
Ahu.
All right, yeah, I see from Lisa and then also from Sharon. And then they say no. And then Jill says some similarities, and I hope I'm pronouncing correctly. Chen Wusu says no. Preston says no. All right. Sorry, let's go back. Actually, when you look at the assessments and the tests, actually all tests are assessments, but tests are, at the end of the day, they are formal. And when we look at the assessments from the program administration lens or as an instructor, you can have assessments as formal and informal. But I have to say that not all assessments are tests, obviously. And this is why we are here today, because when we look at the assessments, when we say they are formal and informal, so the informal assessments are always and always 100%, they are formative. And this is the reason that we are here. So as I know how we all teach, right? So we teach in programs where there are standardized tests, right? Or some programs do not have standardized tests and they do have maybe unit tests, right? Or some programs, if those programs are getting some grants from maybe a government grant, maybe they are mandated by the government maybe to do some standardized tests around, let's say, CASAS tests. There are so many standardized tests. Or if you're a parent who has a kid in a K-12, you know, there are all those MAP-R, MAP-M tests, and they're all standardized tests. When I think about the informal tests, so we're going to come to the informal tests very soon, but I would like to show you this cartoon and I want to see what you think. I will give you a second. Let's go back. Does it make sense? No? I see Sharon is shaking her head and she says no. What do you think about this cartoon? Do you think it really reflects what the testing system is all over in our instructions, or no, this is just made up, this is not true? Any ideas? You can always unmute. I would love to hear your voice.
I put a comment inside the chat. It just sounds like for me, hi, this is Dr. Ortiz, that a test measures what a student knows, while an assessment is just checking and improving, is a way for us to check and improve a student's learning. I put it in the chat. I don't know.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you. And anyone else? You are always more than welcome to put it in the chat. All right. So yeah, so with the standardized test, obviously, I even heard it when I was a program administrator. We would ask our students to buy the books, and then our teachers would do the curriculum based on the students' needs and all. And then at the end, students would take these tests because they are mandated, and then students would come back to the teacher and say, what happened here? So we got this test, and then this test didn't have anything that we learned. So what is really going on in here? So, but let's keep this cartoon in here. I think I'm gonna have 1 or 2 cartoons along the way. So let's do an introduction to formative assessments, right? So today we are definitely not going to talk about any unit tests, any end of session tests, or any standardized tests. We are not doing anything with those today, but we are going to have some examples. Maybe you are actually already doing these activities in the class, but you really do not know, right? These are formative assessment examples. So it happens. And again, I have a QR code for you here for my Padlet. So we have a little poll. So if you are thinking about the formative assessments, and if you are using these formative assessments, how often do you use formative assessments in your classroom? Let's see if it is gonna work. Can everybody see? Can everybody see the screen? Perfect. So we have a QR code. If you want, you can just scan the QR code to join. Or if you tell me, oh, I don't want to deal with, posting it with the QR code, you are more than welcome to put it also in the chat. So how often do you use formative assessments in your classroom? Do you use them daily? Do you use them weekly, or once in a blue moon maybe? Or never? I've never heard about them. Yeah, weekly and daily they are kind of getting closer in competition. Daily and weekly together. I think weekly is going a little bit up, and then I can see the chat. Brenda says weekly. That's great. Thank you for putting it in the chat. All right. So if you never do them, or if you rarely do them, or if you have never ever heard about them, or if you have never done them, this is not to show you, oh, why don't you do them, right? It is good to know that you are either doing them or you're not doing them, so then we can take the lead in here. We have Chen Wusu and then Sophie weekly. That's great. Let's go back. So let's go back in here, and then let's go to do this one. Does anybody know what a formative assessment is? Any ideas? Anybody would like to unmute and tell us what they think a formative assessment is? Please don't be shy. We are all teachers here. Nobody is better than anyone else. We are all teachers. I might be on the other side of the screen, but I am a teacher first. So I would love to hear what you think. I would love to learn from you. So I see something in the chat. Lina says, are formative assessments the Ventures chapter test? Not exactly. They are, they are chapter tests to move to the next level or to see what the students have learned. If we are grading them to see what they are, then they can fall under summative tests. And then Dr. Ortiz says, check how students are. I was just reading Dr. Ortiz's answer. Check how students are doing in their learning, regular check-ins. And then these are the tools to check how students are doing, assessments that let students see their progress from Eileen. And then Megan says, an exercise or practice that helps teacher and student determine their learning and goal progress. And Susie, hi Susie, and then Susie says they are the low stakes checkpoints. Yeah. And Sharon says they are check-in, and then there are periodic check-ins. These are all great responses. And then there is also no wrong answer here either. So here is how I view the formative assessment. So I tried to keep it to a minimum. And then we have something in the chat from Josh. And then, yeah, we filter students' progress. That's right. So the formative assessments they are ongoing. They are not only one-off. And then what we do as teacher is that we do review, we do ongoing assessments. And then as teachers also, us ESL teachers, we are so observant, right? We always are focused on our learners. So we do have also our observations that we use about our students. But why do we have these observations? Because we would like to evaluate our students' understanding. As we have seen all these great responses in the chat, right? So we do the check-ins, we make sure that our students are progressing, and then we are also trying to make check-ins, right? We are checking to make sure that our students are getting there. So this definition is also going to be in the Padlet. And then I don't know why this keeps going. And then the next one. why does it really matter? As a teacher, should I care about these formative assessments? So why? Why is it important for me? Or why is it important even for my students or for the program that I'm working? So nobody tells me that I have to do formative assessments when we do teacher onboarding or new teacher training. So what happens is that we have our students, we want them to grow. So we are in this adult ESL environment. It really doesn't matter which environment we are in. We could be in K-12 environment. But our students coming with various backgrounds and linguistic backgrounds and cultural backgrounds, and then they end up in our classes. There are different classes in different formats throughout Montgomery County. So we want our students to show growth. It is not all about if my student is going to complete this level and go to the next level. It is about how is my student going to find that comfort and also the confidence to learn things and then to move on to the next thing in his or her goal sheet. What are they planning to do? And then the most important thing about the formative assessments is that we as the teachers observing our students, what they can do, what they cannot do. But when we look about that, we never come from the teacher-centered approach. We are on the other side of the fence. We are on the student-centered approach. So we want to see if you are teaching a class for 30 hours, I don't know what the duration of your classes, but the classes are, let's say, 30 hours, 40 hours, 50 hours, 60 hours. You would like your students from the first day until the last day, you want them to move. Obviously, we want them to go to the next level, but at the end, but also we would love for them to improve their confidence or their understanding of what they can do and what they cannot do. And then we never ever compare our students, right? So we are not comparing A and B. Oh, A did this, you did this. No, and then it is already a bad practice anyway. So I would like to, when I was thinking about this analogy somehow came to my mind, right? Do you love to cook? Who likes to cook? I see thumbs up from Peggy, and then I see Sharon, and then who else? Who likes to cook? And Sophie, and who else? No one else? All right. So when we think about Miss Julie as well, and Megan. So when we think about cooking, imagine that you're cooking and then you have guests coming tomorrow and you're cooking a particular food. What do you do? Do you dump everything in the pot and then just wait for the food to cook and then it's cooked and it's done and you serve it to your guests? Or when you are cooking, what you're doing is that you're making sure maybe it is some kind of a traditional recipe from your parents or from your country, or maybe you kind of inherited the recipe from someone else from the family. When you are just cooking, like, do you do any tasting and then do you check the salt? Do you check the ingredients? Or did you put too much water right along the way? So I always think about that. There's this analogy, right? The cooking analogy. If I were a cook or if I were a chef, and then if I owned a restaurant or if I worked in a restaurant or if I am just a home chef, if I'm cooking something and then if I'm going to serve it to someone else, then I am going to make sure that that's the good food. Or if I'm making soup, it's the good soup. So when the cook tastes the soup, continuous check-ins, checking the salt, all the ingredients. Is the rice, cooked? Is the rice not cooked? Or all those check-ins, it's formative, right? The reason that I'm doing this, right, I am making all those progress checks about my food is formative. But I cook and I cook, it takes some time, maybe 1 hour or 2 hours, whatever. and then my guests, and I serve my food to them at the end, what happens is that my guests taste the food that I cooked or the soup that I cooked, then it is the final product. I cannot change it. So that's how I always think about it, as the summative test, right? So when our students, there was one question in the chat, there is a unit test, there is a CASAS test, there is a level up test, they're all summative, they're final. Your students take it and then you cannot change anything because you have invested in them or you have supported in them, right, throughout the class. Then you just leave it to students after all that instruction if they are going to be able to do well or not. But along the way that I know my students are going to have this test, although we are not teaching towards the test, and then my students are getting ready, their milestones, when I'm supporting them, I'm checking them, or I'm doing my observations, that becomes the formative. Any questions so far? No? Please do not hesitate to ask. So there are some assessment ideas. So what I'm going to try to do today is that I'm thinking maybe some of us are teaching low beginning or high beginning students. Maybe some of us are teaching maybe advanced level students. Let's see. Oh, Lina says, I like to eat. Nice. Yeah, very nice. I like to eat too and cook. Yeah, very nice. So I have tried to come up some ideas around beginning students and advanced students. You are also going to see at the end of the presentation, I went into Ventures 3rd edition level 2, and then I looked at some units, and then I did look at some listening, reading, speaking, and pronunciation activities. And then I chose the ones that are formative assessments for me. And I posted it in my Padlet. So it is already in my Padlet. So I am just going to show some practical formative assessment ideas that you may be doing or you may never heard. And then maybe you will think, are these really assessment types? Like, is it really worth doing them as assessment types? Maybe you're already doing these things. I think my mouse is so sensitive, it always takes me to the next slide. Let's start with the non-verbal formative assessments. So I'm going to divide it into different sections. Do you think it is possible to have any assessments, but as today's topic is formative assessments, that are non-verbal? How do we make an assessment non-verbal? Is it possible to have non-verbal assessments? Any ideas? I see some head nods.
I'm sorry, do you mean that the teacher
As
is
a
nonverbal or
teacher,
the student is nonverbal?
no, as an assessment, do you think that the activities that you have or the activities that you have, do you have anything that you think that there are nonverbal that you could use as formative assessments? Or maybe you're going to say, no, I don't agree with you. Nonverbal items cannot be formative assessments.
I have a question. Are you using the word verbal the way it's supposed to be? As
No,
in words, as in
using
words?
the nonverbal, yeah.
I
Mhm.
just mean that there are many people who use verbal in
Yeah.
exchange with oral, and it's
Yeah.
not the same thing. Verbal is words.
Yeah,
If it's
so
a verbal
it's with the
agreement, it
words,
can be
yeah.
written or spoken.
Of course, that's a
So,
good question.
Are
I
you
am
saying
using,
nonverbal as in sign language, or are you saying nonverbal as in not written?
okay, so I am using it as not written. This is something that students do not have to spend time to write. And then I think I have something in the chat. I don't want to. So dialogue journal, I see, watching for student body language, facial expression, yeah. And then Dr. Ortiz says, yeah, body language, thumbs up, thumbs down from Susie. Any other ideas? Please unmute yourselves.
Hi, one of the things that we use occasionally, it's colored cards
Yes.
so that they can't, I mean, at the level where they can't speak very much. Sometimes, like, just checking, are you understanding what's going on? How do you feel about it? And then you can do yellow if you're unsure, green if you're good, red if you need it to be explained again.
That's great. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. I see a couple of things in the chat. Miming, act something out to show understanding. Yeah. So what happens is, I guess this is obvious, the summary of what you guys said in the chat. And then also, I believe Gorky, right? The Gorky said, and then the others, the questions around it. And there is that physical demonstration part of it. There is like pointing, showing, or maybe you ask your students maybe yes or no questions, and your students do not have to write. They don't have to fill out papers, or if it is a virtual class, they do not have to do anything on Post-its or nothing on Padlet Sandbox or something like that. They only do maybe thumbs up or thumbs down, right? These are physical demonstrations. So even when we think about our low-level students, the physical demonstration, because we do know oftentimes students understand what we're saying, but they cannot produce the words to respond. So that's why physical demonstration comes into play. So you can use this for, especially with the beginning and high beginning, or actually with any level if you would like to. So what brings me to the pictures and the drawings? Is this something that you use in your instruction, the pictorial part of it, the drawing part of it, right? As we are going back to our in-person classes, maybe you do have big Post-it notes, those notepads, or if you are teaching virtually, maybe there are some Google Forms, Google Docs, and then maybe there's the whiteboard part of it, or the Padlet, which I really love. And that's why, everything that we have is on the Padlet. But when we think about it, when you think about the intensity of that, from our maybe literate students until any level of students, our students can do activities, the pictorial or drawing products. So this also brings the question, what are they? What can I ask my students to do about the drawing? And then how can they produce something that I think that's the formative assessment? Here I have a little snippet of an activity that I wrote. I am sure you have a better idea than I do have, right? So if I am teaching, in most of these books, in most of these course books, I remember being a teacher many, many months ago, we will take our students to field trips to grocery stores. We always had this unit, right, about the grocery store, the items, when we teach them the prepositions or the products and such in a grocery store. So there is something about this, about connecting these units with students, their own learning or their own personal lives. So if I do have this low-level group, and then I know that my students are not going to be able to produce even 2 sentences or 3 sentences, but when I give my students enough instructions to give them clear understanding of what I'm expecting them to do, my students are really able to draw simple scenes. From a grocery store, they visit the grocery store, maybe cooking a meal, like my analogy, cooking, and some of us love to cook and, eat. And then maybe you can ask them about their past weekend activities, about the family outing. So if you are in this unit about the people, sometimes there are these units about the family relationships, grandma, grandpa, cousin, nephews and nieces. So maybe whatever your focus is or whatever you would like to have them do, maybe you could ask them to draw. We are not artists, right? They are not artists either. So we are not going to score their drawing. Oh, this looks like art. No, that's not what we are doing this. So we are just trying to see, based on the level that they have, but we ask them, we know that we are going to really maybe make them upset or confuse them. How can I ask my low-level students to write me a paragraph about their family outing? So they could have these things based on my instructional goals, the people and objects. So maybe some of my students are able to write maybe some incomplete sentences. Maybe some of them can write complete sentences, and we are not really focused on nitpicking or too much of a grammar component. Is we just want them to understand. And then also, like, how can I, as a teacher, provide feedback? I think feedback is the most important part of it. I remember when I was a brand new teacher, one day I asked my student something about something over the weekend, and the student told me in a very perfect sentence that her grandfather passed away. And then I immediately responded to her, and it's my mistake. I was thinking that my student had this perfect sentence. Oh, that's good. I wasn't really thinking about my students' unfortunate event that happened over the weekend because I was brand new. I was so focused on what my student told me. It was like a perfect sentence. You got it. You said it. You used the second or the past form of the verb so correctly. That thing about the grandfather's passing, unfortunately, it is my first no-no. And then I always think about it after 20 years. What did I do? I didn't really give this good feedback to my student. I really didn't get to the emotions part of it. And then this part is also in the Padlet if you would like to use it. And then when I think about this one, although we are going to see a little bit about this later, but I love exit tickets. Do you do exit tickets? Who does exit tickets? I see Gorky said as so. Anyone? Please, we are all teachers. Unmute yourselves and tell me. If you don't do it, it's okay too, but I love exit occasionally. Wendy says, I want to do exit tickets, but rarely do. And then I say no. Sharon says, I teach online, have tried Google Drawing, only one student part. Oh, that's so sad. Why did only one student participate? Did they find it childish? Sharon, I don't want to call you out, but I would love
No
to hear.
worries. I posted. No, they said they couldn't draw. They didn't know how to draw. They were embarrassed by what they would produce.
I guess
So,
that's fair enough.
that's what I said. So we went into small breakout rooms and had wonderful conversations that way.
That's great. That's great. I think, what you're saying is great because, we are so much used to changing our plans during our instruction. And I think we have plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D. Okay, plan A didn't work because my student felt so embarrassed. Then we moved to plan B. Susie?
Hi, everyone. I'm happy to join you from CCBC.
Yay!
And I was going to share in our program, the way we do the exit tickets is so interesting because the students reflect on the agenda activities and they pick which activity was most helpful for them in the real world and why. And when they say, for example, talking to the landlord, in my building, we have roach. It's so interesting because you learn about the students and you find out which part of the lesson was most meaningful for them.
Thank you
And
so much.
it's such a blessing. Yeah.
Of course, thank you so much. It really is important to build that relationship with the students, and also as Sharon did, not really pressurizing the student. Okay, let's move on. So that's what happens. Okay, so I see one hand up. Gorky, right? Am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Yes, you are. Thank you.
Yeah, so what is the origin of your name?
It's an Armenian name.
Armenian name. All right.
It's a version of Gregory. So.
Oh, that's great. Nice meeting you.
Same here. I don't have an example of an exit ticket, but I do have one of an entry ticket. And I think it's maybe because mine is a weekly class and it's a 4-hour block. So by the time they get to the 4th hour, they're a little bit
Tired?
I'd say, yeah. But in the morning when they come in,
Mhm.
and I think I actually got that idea from one of these workshops at Mikhail. It's sort of like a handout that has all these different sheep, and they have like they're making different types of they're sort of like wearing different things and they're making different type of places, and it's kind of like to gauge how people are feeling. So we do that. I try to do that after we've done a couple of adjectives. And so I asked them, how are you feeling this morning? And there's like a sleepy sheep. There's like another one that's all frazzled, and they enjoy that. And it's a good way of kind of like getting them started.
Yeah, I love
in
that.
terms of, thing. And I think that sort of thing, at least for the beginning of the class, is to kind of like break the ice and to just get people to wake up and just kind of like get into the gauge thing. And it's humorous as well. So it also, in an effective way, kind of like facilitates things.
I totally agree. Yeah, with the entry and exit tickets, we really do not need to have anything too much complicated or lengthy. As the example that I have some examples later. And then one thing that I did see in the chat that I wanted to do it, but I couldn't do it. I also posted some templates. I am not endorsing those templates, but they are like adaptable. Maybe some of you might find them useful. So very basic, and then about the entry tickets, and what we learned maybe in the previous class, maybe reflecting on that, as Gorky did say, their emotions, maybe they come so early, and then the emotions, they really didn't want to come, but they had to come. So many things, I think the emojis are great when you think about them, entry tickets or the exit tickets. And I have some templates about those, and then let's see what we have in the chat. Ship, yeah, Susie, very nice, very nice.
Aho, we did have a question from asking if you could just explain what an exit ticket is.
Sure, I will explain it later more is that, but I can say something very small here. So the exit ticket is that you basically do this at the end of the class, and then you might have different reasons in your mind. And then what is it that you would like to know about your students? Would you like to know how your students are feeling at the end of the class? You could have this exit ticket, smiley face, very sad, or another emotion, and then they can just fill it out. How did you feel today? Or you can have a different way. If you have a little bit more advanced class at the end, let's say that if you did have this particular unit and then you see that there was good participation going on, you did teach lots of vocabulary and such, maybe you can ask your students as the exit ticket at the end of the class, one or two, maybe a couple of sentences, how did you feel? Or do you think that you learned anything today? Or can you please put 2 things that you learned today? So depending on if you are really interested in their emotions, you can have something around the emotion. Or if you really want to know what they learned, you can have like a sheet, half sheet. I have some templates in this presentation. You can have a half sheet. I learned, you can have it written already on a paper, in-person class or online. I learned this. Or there could be something like, I needed to repeat. Or I don't think I understood this kind of thing. So they are your exit tickets. So when your students leave and you collect all those things, almost half of my class are telling me that they had a problem with this word. So then what do I need to do? Maybe the next class I can repeat, or I can teach that word in a different way. Or it is like a reflection activity for you as a teacher as well. I am gonna see, let's see what we have. It shows me. I know we have something in the chat, but here. Let's see. Sophie says, I have used index cards asking them to write something. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, it doesn't have to be any expensive project. It could be use half sheets, the back of the papers. You could print them in advance, and lots of things that can be done. So far, what did we see? We did see the nonverbal ones. We did see the pictorial ones, or we did see kind of the exit tickets, and then we saw some ideas in the chat. So that's why I'm gonna skip this slide. So we will continue on getting into these formative assessments, but any questions so far? All right, don't be a stranger, don't be shy. So always, all right. So, how about the polls? Does anybody use polls? Do you use polls? I mean, we were going to use we use one poll today, right? At the beginning, and then we made it work, yay. But there are polls that can be used, right? Anybody using any polls?
I just use informal polls, you know, raise your hand, yes, raise your hand, no.
Yeah,
That's
great
one.
ideas. Yeah, great ideas. Perfect. Anything else? All right.
I teach an advanced class, so I use Google Poll. At least I'm going to be going back to teaching in person, so I don't know how this is going to work, but I use Google Polls.
Yeah, the
Zoom
Google
polls, sorry,
polls.
Zoom polls.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so they are great. So what I like is no endorsement here, right? These are the things that I like, or these are the things that I have seen work. What I like, do you guys do Kahoots? I love Kahoots, right? So you can, now it is AI assisted, Susie, thank you. So you can just go in, you're an educator, you can put questions there, and then your students can respond the questions that you have in a polling on their smartphones. Very easy to use. And then there is also that I like, as you could see here, is Plickers. I saw in the chat like flashcards. Yeah, flashcards are great. And I am definitely not, look, you're a teacher, you know what is working for you. If you are using flashcards, and if I am making a suggestion here about, let's say, for example, Plickers, I am not asking you to replace your flashcards with the Plickers. I am only showing some other things that might be useful for in-person classes and also for virtual classes. And I am sure there are so many and so many of them, but I'm against it. I'm against having so many technical or apps. Then at the end of the day, I believe that it steers us from the purpose of the class. So whatever works for you, whatever is going to help you with your students, that's the best thing that you will need to use. And then of course, we do have the Quizlets. If you don't know how to Kahoots, if you don't know how to do Plickers, or if you have never used Quizlets, I put the links in my Padlet. You can go and see, you can watch some videos, YouTube videos. They are great. And then it is also, don't say that adult students do not like games and activities, right? They love it. So they really enjoy it. If it is in person, hey, let's stand up after, all day long, they come to the evening class. We need to move. Even the teachers need to move, right? We need that energy. And then, for virtual and online classes, maybe you put your students in breakout rooms and such. So lots and lots of things that can be done. But I know that we have things that we need to finish. So we have to be very mindful about these things. Poll everywhere. I use poll everywhere, whatever I do. But today I'm not using it. I tried because I prepared my presentation with Google Slides, and then Google Slides has their own. But then I realized, oh my God, it only allows me to do only one poll for free. Okay, then what am I gonna do, right? It really restricted my questions. So I didn't want to change the presentation to the PowerPoint, but poll everywhere, I have the free version. You can have any questions for your students. Either you have a laptop and then you hook it up in a class that you go and teach, that works. Or you don't really need that. You can create one, and then you can give, it shows like when you prepare the poll everywhere, it shows like a code, your students is Mentimeter, and then join, they answer your questions. They are great. So, and then I also posted some videos. I don't want to spend a lot of time on these, but these are great polling formative assessments for your students that can be used. So why did I put this in here, the word clouds. Do you ever use word clouds?
Can you repeat your question?
Sure, word clouds, the one that you see on my screen, the word clouds. Do you ever use them in your instruction?
No, no. but
No.
it'd be
Oh,
fun to
Jill
learn.
says, I don't like word clouds. Jill, can you tell me why you don't like word clouds? I would love to hear.
Even for me,
Uh-huh.
it's visually confusing. And
Visually confusing?
It's different sizes and I have to read different things and I'm just never sure what information it's presenting. And I can't imagine
That's great.
having my
That's
students
great.
try to interpret one.
That's your reason. Perfect. Yeah, maybe it looks too confusing. It looks too chaotic. It looks too much maybe. And then I do see that Lena has a question and she's asking, what is a word cloud? Anyone would like to answer, Lena? What is a word cloud?
What you see in front of you?
It is in front of everyone, but what really is the idea behind the word clouds?
You basically have people type in, you know, you ask them a question or a concept or an idea, and then they start typing in the words that they associate with that. And it's basically a frequency chart. So the more frequently something appears in the conversation, the bigger the word. So in this particular example, the word education appears to be like the most frequently quoted word, and that's why. And so then you look at knowledge would be the second one. Students are also important. Apparently, they're kind of on par with learning and character and values. And then we have future, for example, is not that frequent in this particular discussion. So it's very bespoke to the group and that are participating at that particular moment, right?
Yeah. So I think, as far as I'm concerned, I do not found it too much, but I sometimes find that did I find a good website to create the word cloud? That's what I think. So I really want to have this good portal or the website that I could go and create my word cloud. So they can, yes, as Dr. Ortiz says, they are fun. But there are a couple of reasons also why I like to use them. If I am teaching an advanced level class, if we are talking about a paragraph or a text or even something like a role play, I really like my students to get the gist of which words are the mostly used words in that text. Then the word cloud is a great opportunity or formative assessment opportunity for students. And we also, when we speak, we tend to use some words over and over and over, and we do not realize it. When there are role plays, maybe your students are using some specific things. So then, they could use a word cloud. And then, as you can see here, there is this blog post. There are so many resources about the word clouds. And then I got my 30-minute warning, so I got to be very quick. And then here it is, the entry and exit slips. These are the templates that I have. We explained it before, so I'm not going to go into detail. It really doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be difficult to do. So this is an example of an exit ticket. And then you can also get inspired to do your own exit ticket. Maybe you are teaching a class that can maybe say more things other than, a beginner student can say what they learned or what questions they have. They can have some kind of a template like that. You could also have it in a Google Doc format if you're teaching online, and then you can share it, and then each student can go in and make their own copy and do it. So there are different ways to do that. We started with thumbs up, thumbs down, right? So like I was saying, that you can put any emotions that you want. You can use this one as a template. Oh, they got it. They need more work. I'm like really in the middle of things, right? So they could really tell you their whole outlook about this class. So here there are some videos for you. These are only the resources. This is already in the Padlet. You don't know how to use Padlet, here there's a video. Poll Everywhere, as I did mention earlier, I have a free one. Here there's a video that I find useful. With the Google Forms, how can we use Google Forms as the formative assessments? There's a video. And the exit tickets. You can have exit tickets, obviously, anywhere that you want. And then the PowerPoint or Google Slides. So here there is a very short tutorial if you're interested in using exit tickets with different templates, right? They're all for you to use. And then another thing that I would like to say is that the peer assessments. Do you ever do peer assessments? For example, the student to student. How do we do the peer assessments, or how could we use them as the formative assessments, right? I think peer assessments, they do play an important role to create that classroom culture between the students, and you as the student teacher have the ability to see how your students are collaborating. It is not about, oh, partnering students, then only one of them does the work. You want both of them do the work. So maybe you do have a rubric, you prepare a rubric, and then you share a rubric with your students, and you tell them what you want them to look at when they are talking to their friends or when they are evaluating their peers. So peer assessments are great formative assessments. This also brings the question, how do I do that? Like peer assessments, what do I do? How do I do that? I am not sure if I know what rubric that I need to prepare. So here are some ideas for you, right? What if I'm a teacher of a high beginning class, right? And then this is an activity for a peer assessment. This is all my own idea, right? As I did say earlier, you might have a better idea. So if I want to do a peer assessment for my high beginning students, I kind of base it ventures, because I did use ventures many years. So first, I have my students listen to a recording of 2 people about a community event. Maybe it's about a book fair, or maybe a volunteering or a job fair. Then I give each student an opportunity to write a short summary. It doesn't matter, is it a 1 sentence or a 1 word, doesn't matter. What did they hear in the conversation? Then I will have given them a rubric, and then it says, all right, so did I hear this, or did I have this idea, or my ideas, do they summarize? So you can have anything that you want in that rubric. So then let's say that if I'm paired with Gorky, and then we look at each other's work, and then we see, and then we look at them, and then he tells me, hey, look, here says you needed to think about, or you needed to listen about this, but you have no idea what you listened. So we are not really, as peers, we are not criticizing each other. We are learning from each other. If we are in this virtual learning environment, obviously, maybe we are in this breakout room, my teacher comes and stops by and then hears what we are talking about. But we do that exchanging ideas thing, right? So we both maybe learn from each other in the safe learning environment. Nobody is better than anyone. We both have different understanding of the text, maybe. So this is for the high beginning. I also have this one for the advanced level. Just think about it with the AI. Maybe you are having your students listen to a podcast. Maybe it is about AI, or maybe it is about workforce. Maybe it's about finding a job. So the higher the level of students is, maybe the more condensed or detailed your rubric may be. But at the end of the day, it is important that your students really do understand what you're expecting them to do in that rubric. You might want to explain your rubric to your students. This is what I need you to look at. This is our goal that we would like to achieve, and this is how I want you to work on. So these are the things I think that can be done as the peer assessment. And then we did talk about this one a little bit. And then these are some of the ideas that I could tell you. you are all doing these things. You interview your students, you do role plays. I used to do lots of role plays with my students, the pair work, the retelling, or that the game, the grape wine, or if you have like a higher level of students, maybe they do debate, or maybe they do some projects or some pronunciation practice. You know, these are great formative assessments for your students to take part in your classes. And then I always talk about that, but here is a snapshot of Padlet for you. Do you have a video? Padlets are great for portfolios, for written materials. We are not grading them. We are just having an idea of what our students learned or didn't learn. We are giving our students feedback, and our students are not better than each other. They all have different skill sets. I like the vocabulary.com to create vocabulary logs that students can go and practice. In the era that we have lots of apps and such, you know, sometimes when we work for programs, our programs really cannot afford to buy all those software and all kinds of things. So this is something that teachers can look, or students can learn their vocabulary needs with these. So I have everything about these in the Padlet. We did talk about the portfolios. I like the dialogue journals. The dialogue journals are not between students, it's between me and my student. So my student writes for me that I see how my student is feeling. Maybe it is about her day, maybe it is about the instruction, maybe I really couldn't feel what she needs, maybe I couldn't give her the good feedback. So it's just between me and my student. I didn't know about Mahara, but it turns out Mahara is a great tool for portfolios. So you can use if you would like to use it. And then I believe it is free for instructors. So these are all these ideas. But okay, so these are the ideas. These are the ideas that we could do. Lots of ideas that we could do. We could come up with more and more ideas. But to me, whatever formative assessment that we use, even for the summative ones, but we are not doing them today, whatever we plan around the formative assessments, they need to be culturally responsive. Why am I saying that they need to be culturally responsive? What is culturally responsive? Why? Any ideas about that? The culturally responsive part of it? See in the chat. Yeah, relationship building with the dialogue journal. So with the culturally responsive, right? We are ESL teachers, and we do get students with various backgrounds. And I am not only talking about which countries they do come from, about their learning backgrounds. So when you end up in this class, let's say 10 students, 15 students, and sometimes higher, it means that you have 25 or 15, let's do it 15, different identities with different backgrounds that you have ended up in your classroom. And then you have all this lesson plan that you would like to create. So it is really important. I always think about that. What is my students' cultural background and what their language proficiency is? But I think there are a couple of things that I really like considering. So what is your students' relationship with learning? Did they fail in the past? How do they see a teacher? So what is a teacher for them? Did they have bad experiences back home? Did they ever try learning English before coming to your class? Did they have positive experiences, or did they have negative experiences? So these are the things to really think about when you think about the formative assessment. So if you are going to provide this environment with the formative assessment that you want to understand where they are coming from, then you need to think about how culturally inclusive you are when it comes to their linguistic backgrounds and also cultural backgrounds. I like this one. I think this really sums up why we ESL teachers are so much focused on our students. We want them to do better. We are like, doesn't matter if they're adults. We feel them, they're our own, right? So we have this belonging. We want them to do better. So there are lots of things when creating the formative assessments as regards to cultural sensitivity, their cultural identities, their relationships. We might not be teaching them maybe English 101, but there is rigor in the work, right? We have things that we think that are useful for our students. And we are all vulnerable, right? I'm a teacher. I have always been vulnerable. And then I know maybe when I mess up, or when I need more time, or when I need more time to reflect my students. But at the end of the day, my students are in my class, and then they did not come from nothing. They do bring the assets. So, and then I do hope that kind of this really helps you, kind of think about the cultural part of the cultural inclusivity part of the formative assessments. And another thing that I would like to show is that, again, there is this one. I really want you. I was planning to have a breakout room for this, but I want you to think about that. So you will have a copy. You have different students coming from different cultures. So how do you create that culturally responsive environment for your students? And then I have this one for you to think about. We all need to think about this, not only one time, but every time that we teach, I guess. What is the relevance for them? If I end up with a class who are all unemployed, who have no desire to find a job, so then why am I asking them units, or why am I doing them with units that are work related, right? What is the content relevance? And the assessment types. Maybe my students like role playing. Maybe I have some shy ones, they want to be on their own. Maybe they like just drawing and writing a couple of words. Or the most important thing, I guess, is my bias. Everybody has a bias. So if I think that, oh, well, this is just a high beginning class, what do they know? I know better. That's why I'm here. This is the bias. So we all have to stay away from the bias, and we have to make sure that we hear about our students, about their backgrounds and assets and what they bring to the classes. So I think these are good questions or good items to think about when thinking about formative assessments, right? So think about these. How can they help you figure out which ones to use? And then also, who wants to be in a learning environment that really restricts their learning, right? I don't want to be restricted. I don't want my classmates to laugh at me, even though we are all adults. I don't want to feel that heart palpitation because my teacher is going to ask me something, and my classmate who's from the same country as I am is going to think that I messed up. So do I have, as a student, do I have that safe learning environment? Does my instructor with the instruction and also the formative assessments, do they give me the opportunity to speak out? There is that learning space. How do I make that contribution to my classroom society as a student, right? I need my safe learning space. So do you feel them, or do you see them? Do they feel heard? Like sometimes, we kind of see the ones who are very active, and then they keep raising their hands, or they do their thumbs up, and then we do not see the other ones. Maybe they are shy, or they are not ready to participate. So do we feel and see all of them? So do they all participate, right? There are important things to consider with the formative assessments. And about that, if I say my students that it's assessment time, I'm sure they will feel bad, or they will feel nervous. I mean, I was so nervous today before my presentation. So it happens to all of us, right? So I'm sure that in the past, if you were to take an AE test, I am sure you were, nervous. So if you say, now we're doing assessments, hey, Ahu, it is your turn, I'm going to ask you a question. that really makes Ahu very confused. And I think my slide, the font T came to the last line. What happens is that I feel really confused. I feel nervous, or I really do not want to be in the spotlight. Maybe you have learners like that. How can you indiscreetly do these formative assessments that they have no idea that they are assessing? So that's my 2 cents about those. And I did talk a little bit about the rubrics, so I put this link for you. If you don't know how to create rubrics, you are more than welcome to use this free rubric generator based on your lessons and such, right? So you can create any rubrics that you want. You can save them, you can print them, you can share them online. This is something that you can use. And then I did talk about this before, and then one thing to say is that what is a lesson without a feedback? I could do it on my own if my teacher is not giving me the feedback. I want the feedback. I do not want critical feedback that is really going to make me not want to go to that class. So that's part of the formative assessment. When I think about the teachers, when I think about the students, when I think about my learning journey, I think I would want to see, where am I going? I am in this class. Where am I going? What is my pathway? And how am I doing? I would love to know. And then maybe I'm good at speaking, but I'm not good at reading, but I'm getting there. So how can I close that gap? How can I make sure that I do learn, in a way? Okay, I have 10 minutes. Thank you, Cindy. How can I make sure that my teacher gives me the feedback that I need? How can I make sure that I do get the constructive feedback? That's why some programs, they do goal setting, they do midpoint reviews. They are so much focused on students' goals and then the feedback. Right? We don't do calling out in the middle of the class. We just give the feedback to our students. Otherwise, without the feedback, constructive feedback, a formative assessment is not a formative assessment. So this is what I want to show. And then I really like this one. The reason I like this one, we do not like me cooking my food, like me putting the salt and all, right? If I just put beans and water and salt, without all the spices and all, my food is nothing. Then we think about it, this one, the scaffolding. We are just dividing our instruction in small chunks to our students, and at the end of the session, at the end of the year, or whatever your organization or school works, so when you are feeding them chunks by chunks with the instruction, at the end they see the whole picture. That's what scaffolding is. So then we do the formative assessments. This is exactly what it is. So what we are doing is we are supporting them little by little, and then they do get to where they need to be. This is something that you all know, but I would like to bring your attention to number 3. With this one that I can say, I do, you do, and we do it together. That's the main idea. When I say I do, I'm the teacher, I do it. I model it to you. Then you do. Then we do all together in the class, so we all know what is expected or what really is needed to accomplish that lesson goal or that instructional piece of the goal, right? We did talk about the word class. We had question, what can we use the word class for? Pre-teaching the vocabulary. Or we did talk about the thumbs up, thumbs down thing. KWL charts are amazing formative assessment types for those. And we did talk about the feedback. We did talk about culturally inclusive environments. We did talk about that space. Isn't it at the end for us the collaboration? I, as a teacher, collaborate with my students. And then I also collaborate with my maybe program administrator, or maybe my program administrator collaborates with Tiffany. So we are all a team that has the same goal to help our students. That's how I see it. And what happens is that you have formative assessments. Maybe they are not what your students need to go to the next level. Unfortunately, they are unit tests and CASAS tests and all other standardized tests. But you, as a teacher, know what your student has accomplished with these activities that you did do in the class, right? We are not only doing this one-off. This is the whole continuous learning opportunity for your students. And it is not like, hey, when you do this activity, it is only for you. I'm not going to come and stop by or give you feedback. No, me as the teacher and the student, we are actively involved because we are all working together for my growth. Of course, there are gaps in the learning, but my teacher is supporting me with the activities or formative assessments. That could help me to get to that finish line, right? The cooked food at the end. And then the good thing about these is that, as one of our participants here, I'm sorry, I forgot, like we had this one thing, we do change our lesson planning. You look at the exit tickets, something didn't go well as you anticipated it to go. The next day you have plan B. Maybe you already tried plan B and then you move to plan C. So many plans that we have. I want you to think of this one. I know that we kind of did have to make it in a timely manner in 1 hour and 30 minutes. But I think that even for me, we all could have these 3 key takeaways from this session today, right? Maybe some of you have been teaching years and years and years, and then you have all these amazing formative assessment ideas. That's great. Maybe you're brand new, like how I messed up with my student, and then I felt 20 years later, I think about it. So we all, I think, could have even one takeaway with the resources and such for us to think about it, right? Something you have never tried. Maybe you are always feeling comfortable with KWL charts, but you have never used Poll Everywhere. Maybe an opportunity comes for you to use Poll Everywhere. Who knows, right? But what I say is that this is not mandatory, but this is something I want to show. And then you are not to do the assignment if you don't want to. But I created an assignment. I put it in the Padlet. I know that we will do a follow-up. So I just did a screenshot, but you will see it's going to say optional assignment. If you want to look at this, and I know how busy all of you, if you have maybe half an hour or 1 hour that you could spare to do it and let me know. Maybe when we meet the next time, we can look how it worked. Maybe you're going to say, no, this is too much. Well, I understand it is too much, but this is something to show you some ideas that could help you with the formative assessments, right? So, and again, there is this QR code for you to my Padlet that you can have all of the resources there. My presentation is there. All the rubrics will be there, and everything will be there. So I hope that you have a look at that, and then maybe the next time when we meet for the follow-up, you could tell me about your challenges. And then I can tell you that challenges are okay too. We are not expecting 100% success with this workshop. We hope that it kind of gives the opportunity to think about it, because you're, I think, all amazing. You do so many things, but maybe you didn't know that they were formative assessments. Something to reflect on. I think it is important. So without you, what could we do? This is my contact information, the QR code that you see. It is my, it is my contact card, my business card, electronic business card. So my phone number, my email address, and everything, my LinkedIn, everything is in there. So anything that you need, something is confusing, something doesn't make sense, more than welcome to reach out. Or you can just wait until next time that we meet. Oh, I see what, yeah, Sharon, thank you. Exit tickets, we love exit tickets. They are really great. So I'm gonna stop sharing. So you are also, as I did mention earlier, in the Padlet, please look, I created ventures activities. They're also in the Padlet if you are using ventures. Most course books like ventures and future, they're all kind of the same. So some ideas are there for you to be able to use. But thank you so much. That's all from me.
Thank you so much, Ahu. If you could join me in giving a round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you.
for
Thank you.
Ahu. Thank you. There was so much great information that you shared with us, Ahu. And as Ahu was sharing, one takeaway for me, I love the soup analogy, the idea of tasting your soup as you go, because it is easy to just work your way through a lesson or a unit and then get to the assessment at the end and wonder why our learners didn't perform, to the degree that we thought they could or we would expect from them. And formative assessment is really a way for us to check in as we go and make sure that that learning is being absorbed and we're supporting our learners in the best way possible. So I'm really excited about our follow-up. There is a coaching session that Ahu is going to be holding with us on September 19th. I'm going to drop the registration here in the chat. I'll also send it in a follow-up email, which I'll be sending out within the next 24-ish hours with the presentation, today's recording. So we are inviting you to not just walk away from today's workshop and say, hey, that was a great hour and a half, got a lot of great info, keep it moving. We really want this to be an opportunity for us to support each other, for us to support you. So please do apply at least one thing that you learned from Ahu today within the next 2 weeks. See how it goes. It might be great, it might not be, but this is an opportunity for learning. And so we would invite you to come back. We have about a 45-minute call at 1 o'clock on September 19th. And you can bring your questions, your comments, your concerns. You can hear what your peers did in their classrooms and see what's working and what's not, so that we can all continue to evolve and improve. So we hope to see you all there. I'm additionally sending a link to our next workshop. All of this is going to be in an email as well. On October 2nd, backed by popular demand, for those of you who went to our conference in March, you may have attended the Using Mini Projects to Extend Learning in the Real World workshop. There was a lot of requests for a longer version of this workshop. And so Tessa will be back with us on October 2nd for that workshop. So we're excited about that as well. But thank you all for being here. Thank you for your continuous learning and growing. The best teachers are the ones who are always learning and evolving. So I just want to celebrate all of you and thank you for the work that you're doing. Feel free to unmute, say so long or thank you in whichever language you choose. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gracias,
Tiffany.
Tiffany.
Thank you,
Gracias, Ahu.
everyone.
Hasta la
De
próxima.
nada, bye-bye.
No.
Pachakalam.
Bye.
Hello, Aru. Yeah, yes, the QR code that you mentioned at the beginning. And
Yeah.
what's the contact, your contact information? I couldn't find it.
Oh, okay. So I will give it to Tiffany, so Tiffany could share it with you. All of my resources, including the PowerPoint and everything, will be there. So you are more than welcome to use anything you like.
So thank you. Thank you.
You're most welcome. Nice meeting you.
Yes.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Chenwu. It's great to see you. Thank you, Ahu.
I hope I didn't mess up. I tried to be a little bit fast. for that.
Yeah, no, it was beautiful. A lot of great content. I think people are going to really dig into those resources. So if the PowerPoint is share ready, I can just download it from the link
Oh,
that
you can. Yeah.
Okay.
So I updated it maybe a couple of minutes before the session. I
Okay.
think you had the Google Slides